going on, everybody? Happy Wednesday. Welcome to Fantasy Hockey Picks and Bets right here on the Mayo Media Network. I am Chris Meaney. 2 games on the ice tonight. We have Chicago and Nashville. The Preds came back last night. 3-2 win. A beautiful overtime goal from Roman Josi. We have Ottawa and Vancouver, the second game. 2 of 3 straight between these two teams. It was Vancouver put up a touchdown on the Sens, 7-1. If you're just new to the show, welcome. Thanks again for taking the time to hang out. Like, subscribe to the Mayo Media Network. Subscribe to this show. Leave 5 stars. Leave a comment in the YouTube section. I want to see more comments. I want to see the player that you picked up, a player that maybe you're dropping, your favorite pick of the night, maybe your favorite DFS pick of the night. Lots of picks over at FTN. If you're looking for a subscription over there, ftnbets.com, ftndaily.com. You can use the promo code Meaney. You can use the promo code Mayo. It's all good. A decent day over there. 4 for 4 on the totals, 8 for 3 on the props. So hopefully we can keep things going on this show here today. We're going to talk about those 2 games, ads, drops, and just some NHL talk in general with one of the best in the business. We got Pete Jensen from NHL Network. He is the senior fantasy editor over there and the co-host of NHL Fantasy on Ice 3 times a week. Give him a follow at NHL Jensen. If you're a hockey fan, you should be following this guy. Pete, welcome. Happy Wednesday. Thanks for taking the time to join me today, man.
Oh, great to be on with you. And yeah, it's always fun, right? No matter what show or platform we're talking, anytime we get a few minutes to talk hockey and talk general trends is one of my favorite things. So great to be on with you, Chris.
Yes, absolutely. I second that. So before we get into the games, we're 2 weeks into the season now. We're starting to see some trends, like you said. Any takeaways, any surprises? Who's caught your eye so far 2 weeks in?
Well, definitely. I mean, no team can be underestimated, especially on those second ends of the back-to-backs. And then we've seen some surprise teams out there, like certainly the LA Kings are a surprise to me out west. And then in the East, like the New Jersey Devils with what Jack Hughes has been able to do. And just when you look at a team on paper and you have low expectations and you kind of solidify them at the bottom of the division, that goes for a couple of teams out there, including the Devils, including the Senators. I think you'll still see them catch some teams by surprise. And just like with how good Hughes has been from a scoring standpoint, being really a top 100 overall fantasy player without a doubt when he came into the season as a really deep sleeper after the underachieving last season, I think speaks volumes about his confidence, the training he did in the long off season for the Devils. And now he's really lighting a fire in his game and fantasy owners are taking full advantage. So hopefully you picked him up in late rounds and you're reaping the rewards of that from Jack Hughes.
Yeah, no kidding. He's looked really good. What do you think the biggest difference is? Obviously, confidence is one thing, right? I mean, you're playing as a rookie. He had 7 goals and 21 points last year. He was minus 26 on a bad hockey team. 61 games played so far this season. 3 goals, 7 points. He's a +1. I mean, we could laugh at plus minus all we want, but he played 15 minutes per game last year. Pete, he's flirting with 19 minutes per game. A confidence thing. He looks stronger, bigger. He looks quicker. I mean, to me, when I watch him play, confidence stands out. Like he's holding on to the puck a little bit longer. What do you think is the difference from year 1 and year 2 with him?
I think it's a couple of things. I think definitely his usage. He's been unleashed in a way by new coach Lindy Ruff compared to John Hines last year and then the interim guy. So it's I think that's a key thing. It was a fresh start. You look back to last year, the Devils were one of the most improved teams of the offseason, and it was Taylor Hall's contract year, and they had just gotten Subban, and they kind of fell with a dud early on in the season. And then it was just like a negative aura around that team, and they sold couple of pieces at the deadline. Now it's like a fresh start and like nobody took them seriously. Nobody expected them to compete even in that really tough, arguably the toughest division in the East with all those teams like Philly and Boston and Washington, Pittsburgh, the Islanders, etc. So yeah, I think that like his off-season training, I know he trained a lot with Quinn Hughes, his older brother, because they were spending so much time together in quarantine and stuff. So that's a huge thing. Hit the coaching and how he's being used in the lineup is maybe the biggest thing. And then just the general expectations and like the Devils are out to prove everybody wrong. Whereas last year, everybody expected big things from them and they fell flat on their face, I think.
Yeah, the East Division I think is the toughest. I mean, it's
Yeah.
a bloodbath. What do you make of the Rangers start? 1-4-1. They got 3 points. I know you're getting a lot of questions about certain Ranger players underperforming to start the season. What do you make of New York 6 games in? Is it panic mode yet, or is it just let's relax?
Yeah, I think that like the coaching thing is a big concern for a lot of people. This is now 2 years running that we've seen Capo Caco be not even marginally fantasy relevant. And then this year it's Alexis Lafreniere, who I believe still doesn't have a point through 6 games this year. So that's concerning. And then Igor Shesterkin is a guy that people took in the top 50 overall fantasy rankings for season long leagues. And he has no wins at this point. I mean, we're talking about a guy like Scott Wedgwood out there having 2 wins, and
Jeez,
some
yeah.
backup goalies out there having 1 or 2 wins at this point. So that's concerning. I mean, that's why people are asking, should I drop Shesterkin for, say, John Gibson, or should I drop Shesterkin for a rookie out there like Capo Kakinen, who's from the Wild playing a bunch of games here with Cam Talbot day to day. But back to the Rangers, it's just like some of their defensive holes that we saw exposed in the playoffs. Unfortunately for them, it's carrying over to the regular season, and we're not seeing that same dynamite value from even Panarin and Zibanejad so far. So I do expect the Rangers to come around a little bit here, but the longer that these struggles continue, I think it's going to be pinned on Coach David Quinn, because not being able to implement some of these really highly talented young players early and often is a big concern for everybody, I would say.
Yeah, there's just way too much talent on that team to not compete anyways. Like I don't think they're a lock. I don't think they're a lock heading in. We just talked about the division being so tough, but there's way too much talent on that team for them to have this kind of start that they've had, because Zibanejad has been slow.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would drop Shesterkin. I don't think that I would. I think I would hang on and be patient. I believe that the talent is certainly there, but Gibson may be a guy that
Yeah.
people may want to get on their rosters.
Yeah. Maybe for Gibson.
Yeah, he's pretty good. We've been talking about him a lot on this show too. He always seems to be underpriced on daily sites, and the saves pile up. And he was really good, of course, last night. Hughes over to Ty Smith, over to the top 10 added players in Yahoo formats over the past 24 hours or so. Ty Smith, Hughes' teammate with the Devils, up at the top. 28% ownership. He's been added in over 5,000 leagues with Connor Murphy in there. This is a great guy. If you're playing in hits and blocks leagues, he can help you out there. Tyler Pertuzzi has shown up on the score sheet lately. He's a nice little player. I know he plays in the Devils, but he's a good player. Pavelski was just undrafted, Pete, everywhere across the board. I know maybe COVID, this not playing for the first week and a half. I suppose that had something to do with it. We had some fun with Eric on Monday, just how he had 4 points in his first game, and it took him 12 games last year to score 4 points, 6 power play points, picked up his 7th power play point last night. It took him 50 some odd games to have 6 power play points last year. So 2 ends of it with Pavelski. Hintz is in there, didn't play last night. Justin Falk, Andrew Kopp, we'll get to in a little bit. Kempe, Jesse Puljujärvi, we talked about him a lot on Monday. Still not finding the score sheet, but playing with Connor McDavid and putting a lot of pucks on net. And then Tyler Mott is a guy who can help you out in those banger leagues. What do you make of Ty Smith at the top? He's an impressive rookie.
Oh, for sure. And this year it's not like last year where you had Quinn Hughes, Cale Makar, and Adam Fox as historic rookie performers. You have, you're wondering which is the defenseman out there that's a rookie that is going to become fantasy relevant. Is it Romanov from the Canadiens? Is it Ty Smith, which he has been the best so far among rookie defensemen? Or is it maybe Bowen Byram from the Avalanche? But he has so many guys in front of him between Sam Girard and Cale Makar and Devon Taves. So I do think that because Smith plays for a hidden gem type team like the Devils, I mean, I guess if your league counts plus minus, you're a little bit more concerned investing in a player like from the Devils. But Ty Smith, definitely has come a long way in his development over the past year and a half. And I think that like getting points in 5 of your first 6 NHL games is no joke. That never really happens for rookie defensemen. So I think this is a great chance. And the Devils, like, they have Sami Vatanen, but he's injured right now. They have Severson, who's been there forever. They just have like a glaring hole on their first power play that I think over the course of the season, you could see Ty Smith get a real handle on here. So like if you're looking at down the road this year, beyond these early returns we've seen, maybe he gets first power play and he's out there with Paul Mary and Jack Hughes and then Nico Hischier when he comes back from injury. I like the sound of that. So yeah, Ty Smith, I think, is a great short-term ad, and the long-term implications could be even better down the road.
Yeah, I agree. He's been very impressive, Pete. So far, averaging 1 minute 35 seconds per game on the power play. So he is getting an opportunity as a rookie, which you don't see quite often. Last year was different with those three studs that you mentioned on the blue line. Was just a historical year.
Yeah.
So you don't really typically see this kind of stuff from rookie defensemen who are getting in there and getting a lot of ice time. Also on this list, and I saw you picked him up in my keeper league, Andrew Kopp. My goodness. So let's touch on the trade first before we get into Kopp. Pierre-Luc Dubois, Patrick Laine, Jack Roslovic, just thrown in. Here you go. Let's throw him in there. Pretty good player in his own right. What did you make of that blockbuster deal?
Well, it was crazy to see. I mean, you look back, they were drafted in the same draft class and they were both top 3 picks. So, like, when can you ever remember seeing something like that, especially with 2 kids in their early 20s? Both of them are 22 years old. I mean, we could talk about some big trades in recent years, like Carlson and Mark Stone. And, those didn't have nearly as much in terms of proven talent going on the other way on those trades. And even if you look at like Subban for Weber years ago, it's like it doesn't even compare. So this is like something really cool to see in the NHL that you don't see very often. So that was great. But in terms of like upside on their new teams, like I'm looking for Patrick Laine to maybe take the next step in his career and become an individual team leader in forward ice time type thing where he leads them in scoring, becomes more of a playmaker than we've seen so far in his career. And in order to do that, he's going to have to mesh with John Tortorella. So it kind of feels like a boom or bust type thing for Patrick Laine in Columbus. Like it'll either work out perfectly and he'll become a greater scorer than we've even known him to be to this point, or it could flop and he's in an RFA contract year and then, something could happen down the road where he goes to a different team. So yeah, I think it's a little bit more risky as far as Patrick Laine. As far as Pierre-Luc Dubois, he's that number 2 bona fide center that they've been coveting for so many years now. So it's Scheifele 1C and Dubois 2C. And with the way that Kopp and Nikolai Ehlers are playing right now with Paul Stastny, I mean, it just gives the Jets so many options to work with here over the rest of the season. I do think the Jets are more equipped to go on a deep playoff run. I don't love their defense, but they do have a couple of guys in fantasy that can help you out for sure with Pionk and Morrissey, and even when Heinola comes up. So I like the Jets. I already had the Columbus Blue Jackets as a playoff team because that Central Division was a little bit on the weaker side. But like I like the Winnipeg Jets for sure as a playoff team after this trade.
Yes, you hear that, Maddie? Maddie Best?
I'm just concerned about Hellebuck. He doesn't look good as he used to.
Yeah.
It's the defense. I think Pete nailed it. It's the defense. I get the concerns too, Maddie. I'm just joking in here with you, but there's a lot of holes in this North Division, to be honest with you. I mean, Toronto's playing good, Montreal's improved, but after that, we could talk about the Oilers defense and their goaltending. We can talk about the Jets defense, the Canucks defense, right? Calgary's,
Right.
hasn't played a ton of games, and Ottawa's got issues themselves. They're rebuilding, right? The expectations are not as high. Kopp, Stastny, and Ehlers. My goodness, these guys, even last night, we had 2 goals and 4 points from Kopp. We had Ehlers with a goal for his 5th straight game. 1 goal and 4 points for him last night. On the season, these guys, they've combined for 9 goals and they're flirting with 20 points. Kopp has 25 shots and Ehlers has 24. I thought originally, okay, Pierre-Luc Dubois is just going to slide in there, and he probably will. But that's a trio that's looked really good. I like the move from the Jets standpoint. You said it, Pete, just deep down the middle. I think that they're a playoff team too. I think that they're going to get in. I think the Leafs are going to get in. I think the Habs are going to get in. And then it's going to be a dogfight for that 4th spot, whether it is the Oilers, the Flames. We don't have enough time to get into what would happen with Edmonton if they didn't make the playoffs in this division. There would definitely have to be some changes, Pete. And then Columbus. So where do you see maybe Laine fitting in? Because we talked about Kopp. We talked about Stastny maybe getting downgraded a little bit when Pierre-Luc Dubois gets in there, and, the advantage for Kopp and what he's done lately, just getting a lot of ice time and looking just real nice as a player. And then Alexander Texier is somebody that we talked about as well, potentially could getting Laine on his wing or Max Domi on his wing. But I watched the Blue Jackets game last night, also had them in the playoffs, Pete, like their team, like the move. They need some goal scoring. They need some punch in the power play. It's fine. I know you give up a big center like Pierre-Luc Dubois is tough, but it is risky. Don't know if he's going to stick around there, if that's going to work out with Tortorella. All those questions are certainly warranted. But last night, Texier, Bjorkstrand, and Jenner looked pretty good. Looked pretty solid. Texier's got 4 goals, 2 assists. He's got points in 5 of his last 6. Where do you see Laine fitting in this team?
I think he fits in best if he could play left wing. He could be their first line left wing, and then on the opposite wing could be either Bjorkstrand or Cam Atkinson, who has shown some bounce back appeal here the past few games, and we know he's a 40-goal scorer in years past. That's the challenge for Columbus, is like on that right side, whether it's Laine, whether it's Bjorkstrand or Atkinson, they have guys that could finish, and have a high shot volume, but can Laine be the playmaker that, delivers them the goods to finish the job? So I know Laine, since entering the league in 2016-17, is top 10 in goals and also goals per game. So, certainly no fluke at all what he's done. And the past couple of years, he's actually done it, which I think helps to his appeal going to the Blue Jackets, where I said he's going to need to be a standalone performer. He has been playing for, I think, 2 years now on that second line for the Jets without a great centerman at even strength, and away from players like Scheifele, Wheeler, and Kyle Connor for the vast majority of the time at 5-on-5. So that shows he could still perform and still round out some other areas to his game, which I think we've seen the past 2 years, even though his goal scoring ceiling has dipped a little bit. But yeah, I think that Patrick Laine would be better suited at left wing, where the Jackets really don't have a ton of great options here and now before this trade, and then see him play probably with Domi or Texier up the middle. And then on the right side will be a great option as well with Bjorkstrand or Atkinson.
Yeah, and you got to think it helps out Seth Jones and Werenski and helps out that power play. Yeah, you mentioned it. I mean, 9th in the NHL in goals since he entered the league and has never scored fewer than 28. The guy is an absolute sniper. It's something that they certainly needed. The most dropped guys as we get into the Senators and their matchup tonight. It's full of sense here. Dadonov, Stützle, Batherson, Zaitsev's in there. Josh Norris is in there. And you know what, Matt? You are going to be making a top 10 added board this year with all sends. And you'll make it again with all sends drop. This is just the way it's going to be. This is the way it was last year. You know this, Pete. How many times did you talk on NHL Fantasy Ice about Duclair, most added, most drop, most added? Nobody knew what to do with these sends. It's part of streaming. The Senators play tonight. There's only 2 games on Wednesday. If you pick them up, like the Sens and the Blue Jackets, to me, if you're playing season long, you're going to have to make those tough decisions on Thursday and Saturday with all those games. It's nice to have somebody on a Wednesday and on a Friday and on a Sunday. And that's what we got here with the Sens and the Blue Jackets. So I think that those guys are sneaky little ads for season long. That's how I try to get the advantage on my opponent, just with using those 4 moves and attacking those lighter nights in the NHL. But what Sen would you hold on to here? Batherson, Dadonov, Norris, Zaitsev. Are there any Sens that are worth hanging on to in your opinion?
The one guy that I would not stream, I would just hold on to, is Tim Stützle, the rookie. So, and just because of his upside in general, after how he played in the World Juniors, and I know he just dealt with an injury, but he's now back in the lineup. I expect him to be a big DFS performer, assuming he plays in this rematch against the Canucks. Other than that, you're just going to see the streaky streaming Senators. We'll call them that this year. That's good in terms of season-long value. But DFS caters a lot better to the Senators, especially on a night like this after they just got destroyed the other night. They're probably going to be the lowest ownership team out of the 4 teams in action. And I like that angle for the Senators, especially considering that North Division, no matter who they play, all of those teams are susceptible to giving up 4 or 5 goals on any given night. We've even seen it from the Canadiens, who are as deep as any team in the league right now. 2 great goalies, a strong defense with 3 good pairs, and they've still allowed 5+ goals to teams like the Maple Leafs and the Vancouver Canucks in some random games this year. So yeah, don't sleep on the Senators in DFS. That's where I'm really seeing my value. And for season long, like Stützle is the only one that I'm like married to. I have him in one of my leagues.
Yeah, I like that call upside. I have some Batherson and some Josh Norris in deeper formats, some salary
Yeah.
cap stuff where they're super cheap. I do like that top line. Batherson looks kind of not I don't want to compare him to Hughes, but as a guy who looks a little stronger, more confident, is a little bit quicker, was working out with some solid players in the East Coast
Yep.
over the offseason. So I'm starting to see a little bit of growth in his game. Other guys on this list, Ryan Graves, I mean, he benefited from playing for Kel McCarr. You mentioned Devon Taves. Taves has kind of stepped in to that role. Bowen Byram's in there as well, getting some more ice time opportunity. Tony DeAngelo is a guy that I would drop. Eric Gustafson's a guy that I would drop. Saw Shane Gostisbehere get back into the lineup last night. Didn't do a whole lot, but he was the bare minimum in DFS and put a couple pucks on net. Remember when he was on top of the world, Pete, at one point, Shane Gostisbehere. So let's touch on this game a little bit more here tonight. The Vancouver Canucks and the Ottawa Senators, both teams have been playing to the over quite often. You alluded to it. There's been a lot of goals in this North Division. Especially on Vancouver. Heading into the first of three, they had allowed more goals per game than anybody, and the Sens were number 3, and then Vancouver really took it to them. They won 7-1. Pettersson slowly starting to come around. Pete, been talking about him maybe as a potential buy low up in the top line again with Besser and Miller. Where do you think the goals come from tonight?
Well, definitely a safe bet is Bo Horvat, the way that he's been scoring from the playoffs last year when he had double-digit goals. Even though the Canucks didn't make the conference final, they almost did. But Horvat is a lineup lock right now for sure in DFS, and he plays with Tanner Pearson and Niels Höglander, who I'm really high on. As he's shown some nice flashes here in certain games.
Absolutely.
The team has been kind of problematic around him, but I feel like he's the bright spot of that team so far, making the team by surprise at a training camp. So I do like that little Horvat Höglander stack just to get exposure to Vancouver's top 6. Of course, JT Miller was one of the most valuable fantasy players in the league last year. I know that DFS doesn't count hits, but he brings some serious category coverage regardless in any format, and the exposure to Pettersson. So he's a guy that on a small slate like this, maybe worth spending up for just because you know what he's able to do, but you just haven't quite seen it yet in this particular season. And he did miss those 2 games, so that kind of probably messed with his flow a little bit. I do think that with multiple games here against the Senators, you could expect an outburst for sure in one of these games from Pettersson and JT Miller. So yeah, and the Canucks really, I mean, talk about buy low appeal, bounce back appeal. I mean, you're not going to get any better opportunity than this to turn your season back on track. We saw the 7-1 response from them the other day. A couple more opportunities the rest of the way against the Senators. You got to win these games if you're Vancouver, if you hope to even be in that conversation, what we were saying for that 4th spot with teams like Edmonton and Calgary. I mean, those teams are looking better than they are. So they got to win these games. They got to win the gimme games here.
I had Vancouver in. I'm not ready to give up on them yet. I do feel like there's some issues. They definitely have some, but Brandon Sutter's been a nice player for them. A couple shorties, I believe he has a couple, highlight reel goals over the past couple games. He's been really good. I mean, there's been at least 7 goals scored in Vancouver's games in 5 straight contests, and every game but one. Right, 7 of 8. There's been a lot of offense. I like it. I'm here for it. I'm fine with it. The goalies may not like it. The coaches may not like it, but I am certainly here for it. On Monday, I said Vancouver in the over. I'm going to lean with that again. It's 6.5 minus 150. I like the Canucks to win the game. If you don't want to go with the over, you can just get them in straight up. I'm not seeing any Quinn Hughes shot props. He was plus money at 2.5. If you can find that, guys, I still like it. Maybe 1.5 shots. He's just putting the puck on net. He's getting a lot of ice time there. And I usually go back and forth between Brock Besser and Bo Horvat for the over 2.5 shot props, Pete. But plus money for Pettersson tonight, 2.5 plus 115. I think I could certainly get on board with that. And then it's just anybody's guessing game with the Sens. I don't want to be a cop out here, but I was looking at natural stat trick. 5-on-5, their forward lines. There was 11 different combinations at 5-on-5 in their last game. you and I talked about it before we came on. It's probably something we're going to see quite often from the Senators team. The last game on the slate here, it's these two teams played last night, Chicago and Nashville. We had Nashville come back late. They got the tying goal late, and then they got the Yossi overtime winner. Our very own Eric Young was at that game last night, sending me a video. He's like, not a lot of fans here, and the hockey is a little sloppy, but he enjoyed himself. He got the win at the end. What do you see in the rubber match, or I guess not rubber match, the second half of the doubleheader?
Well, yeah, that was a big performance from Nashville's top player with that game on the line and Yossi. And going into yesterday, we were a little worried about Yossi in our defenseman rankings. I mean, not really everybody behind him was drastically outperforming him, but when you start seeing value deeper down the line and you see, some weird names, like obviously Petrie has been a stud. You never would have expected him to be more valuable than Yossi to this point. But you see guys like even Ristolainen and some of these other guys, of course, the guys on Colorado outperforming him to this point. So, and sometimes with those other teams, you could say, I trust those teams a lot more than I trust Nashville offensively. And that's what I would echo here. But, again, it was a favorable matchup for the Preds. They got it done. That's another team that had their confidence kind of disrupted a little bit by the canceled games. They looked really good early on in the season and had a little bit of a hiatus and then got their doors blown off by the Dallas Stars last weekend. So I think they have to just regain their confidence here. Nashville really should be in that mix with teams like Columbus and teams like the Florida Panthers for that fourth and final spot in the Central Division. So I think that the Predators are a good play here. And I just have too many concerns with the Blackhawks outside of, Patrick Kane, and even Kane's line mate DeBrincat is out with the COVID-19 protocol. So that's unfortunate for them. Boquist is out as well. So, just on top of the defensive holes and maybe the weakest goaltending in the league this year on paper, you see a couple of key guys missing for Chicago. So that worries me.
Yeah. Yesterday over at FTN with our stream, we were on the three props, and we had Roman Yossi over the shot prop, and Arvidsson and Forsberg just got there. And even though Yossi got the goal, and it just really wasn't enough from those three stars. And taking a look at the 5-on-5 numbers, it really was, I mean, they dominated Chicago. It really was that second unit of Granlund, Duchesne, and Kunin who had a pretty solid hockey game. I'm taking a look at the top 25 defensemen on Yahoo. You're right. There's some guys in here like Schultz is 7%, Romanoff wants to be called Romanoff, 51%, Taves in there, 51%, Muzzin, 53%, Justin Falk, 39%. There's a few guys in there that are widely available in leagues that are off to hot starts. Don't sell Jeff Petrie, people. He's usually a top 20 defenseman in leagues with hits and shots. He does a lot for you there. Patrick Kane, 0 shots last night, Pete. I took a look last night, and how many times he had 0 shots last year? Twice. Only 2 games with 0 shots. The last time he had 0 shots, he bounced back with 7 the night before. I don't know if he's going to shoot the puck a ton, but yeah, his line mates are not great. I will go with the Preds. I like Nashville and the under. As much as I want to see this team get going offensively, I'm still not sold there completely, and I don't have a lot of faith in the Blackhawks to do their part. So Nashville in the under, Vancouver in the over. I'm still going to take some shots here on some overs. Yossi over 3.5 plus 100. 26 minutes last night. I know that game went to overtime. He's still probably going to get a lot of minutes. Not going to go with Kane over 3.5, even though, as I said, he bounced back the last time he had 0. But Strome 1.5 shots. Anytime I see a 1.5 and it's not juiced up to minus 200, I'll get involved there. So Dylan Strome 1.5, I can get behind that. And if you can find Arvidsson anywhere at 2.5, he's a volume shooter. Pete, always a pleasure, man. On the way out, you want to touch on your podcast or any final words from you?
Yeah, for sure. Check out NHL Fantasy on Ice, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, on YouTube as well now this season. So we're excited about that. And we're rolling Monday, Wednesday, Friday this season. We cover season-long fantasy, a little bit of sports betting, and DFS. So we can answer your questions and kind of do a little cross promotion here over the course of the season, Chris. So yes, we're excited, to be on the show with you here and, to follow up with it on the podcast and hopefully have you on soon in the future as well.
I would Would love that. Absolutely. At NHL Jensen, make sure you give Pete a follow. Again, 2 games tonight, guys. Vancouver and the over, Nashville and the under. Get involved with some of those shot props on the Preds side. And just on the 2-game slate, I have no problem spending up for a guy like Yossi or Hughes, and maybe like Pete said, Oaklander, save some cash with him. You can save some cash with Kunin as well. From Pete Jensen, myself, Chris Meaney, rate, review, subscribe, leave a comment, and we will talk to you guys on Friday. Have a good one.